Filipino composers of the 20th century. 20th century Filipino composers may be integrated with Philippine history for a better understanding of the musical styles and their sources of influence. Filipino composers of the 20th century could be a part of the Philippine culture. For a better knowledge of the musical styles and their sources of influence, see the history of music. And as significant exponents of our cultural legacy, we should be grateful to our nationalist composers. The 20th century Filipino composers had a significant role in the introduction of new ideas. The Kundiman tunes and traditional folk song melodies that we have to be used to some favored a surrealist aesthetic, while others mixed ethnic and surreal elements. In their compositions, they use Western techniques and musical influences. Francisco Buencamino founded the Central Escolar de Señoritas, Conservatory of Music, as well as the Buencamino Music Academy in 1930. Many of his piano works have become staples in the Philippine repertoire of today's performers, especially Mayon, Larawan, and Maligayang Bati. He also ventured into musical direction and scoring for films, as well as composing several zarzuelas and Kundiman. Francisco Santiago is known as the father of the Kundiman, and belongs to the Triumvirate of the Filipino composers along with Nicanor Abelardo and Antonio Molina. Santiago's music was romantic in style, incorporating Western forms and techniques with folk materials. Among his famous works are Pakiusap, Madaling Araw, and Kundiman, Anak Dalita. He became the first Filipino director of the Conservatory of Music, UP. Nicanor Abelardo, although a 20th century modern composer, was also a composer in the Romantic style. His best-known compositions include Mutya Ng Pasag, Nasan Ka Irog, Cavatina for violoncello, and Magbalik Ka Hirang. The Tanghaling Nicanor Abelardo, main theatre, of the Cultural Center of the Philippines and the Abelardo Hall of the UP College of Music are named after him. Antonio Molina was a product of both the Romantic and Impressionist music. He was fascinated by the dynamics and harmonies of Debussy but retained much of Romantic style in his melody. A characteristically Impressionist work is his piano composition Expectation Brief Introduction 3 Malikmata, Transfiguration. Ryan Cayabyab is a contemporary composer and conductor who spans both popular and classical world with his pop music, ballads, operas, zarzuelas, orchestral arrangements, marsas, psalms, and choral compositions. Among these are the award-winning K Ganda Ng Ating Musica, the modern zarzuela Alaikabok, and the opera Spoilerium with libretto by Fides Cuyugan Asensio. His compositions are mostly of traditional Western influence. Hilarion Rubio was a composer, music teacher, conductor, and clarinetist. His name was closely identified with his works for the orchestra, as a conductor for opera, ballet, and dance recitals, and his music for movies. Call. Antonio Buenaventura promoted Philippine music by extensively using folk materials in his works. He recorded folk and dance music around the country with Ramon Tolentino and national artist for dance Francisca Reyes Aquino. He restored the Philippine Constabulary Band in 1945, which was considered one of the best military bands in the world. He is a national artist for music. Rodolfo Cornejo was the researcher and official composer of the Philippine government in exile, under President Manuel L. Quezon. He served as pianist-director of a USO concert unit that entertained the Allied forces during World War II. He later became the soloist of several orchestras, and eventually the musical director of the Sampaguita and Vera Perez movie companies. Felipe P. de Leon Sr. is known as a nationalist composer who expressed the Philippines' cultural identity through his compositions. He wrote piano compositions, hymns, marches, art songs, chamber music, symphonic poems, overtures, band music school songs, orchestral works, operas, Kundiman, and zarzuelas. His two operas, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, are considered his masterpieces. He is a national artist for music. Lucio San Pedro is known as a romantic nationalist. He incorporated Philippine folk elements in his compositions with Western forms and harmony. His chords have a rich expressive tonality, as represented in his well-loved lullaby Sa Ugoy Ng Duyan, his orchestral composition Suite Pastoral, a musical description of his hometown Angono, and his nationalistic symphonic poem Lahing Kayumingji. His other compositions include songs, pieces for violin, cello, and chorus, and works for the symphonic band. He is a national artist for music. Rosendo Santos Jr. was a prolific composer whose works include concerti, sonatas, symphonies, symphonic poems, 5 operas in a Philippine dialect, numerous band overtures, and over 200 marches. He also wrote 50 masses in Latin and 20 in English. Alfredo Buenaventura holds the sole distinction among Filipino composers of having composed 5 length operas. His compositions combine contemporary and conventional styles, and contain melodies that are simple and understandable, while using contemporary harmonies that enhance their complexity. As we all know, contemporary music in the Philippines refers to composition that adopted ideas and elements from 20th century art music in the West, as well as the latest trends and musical styles in the entertainment industry. The modern Filipino repertoire consists of musical pieces that have been written in 20th century idioms that have evolved out such stylistic movement as Impressionism, Expressionism, Neoclassicism, as well as avant-garde and new music. Music will always be a part of our daily lives. From the past and present time, music has never failed to entertain, inspire and make everyone's life colorful, especially us, Filipinos. We can't deny our love for it that whatever age we'd be, music will never leave and stop singing for us. In this module, we will listen and study the music of some 20th century traditional composers that you've encountered from your past lessons that contributed much to the industry of Philippine music. We will also appreciate this music by performing, playing, or singing some of it. Nevertheless, contemporary Philippine music represents the beauty and simplicity of every Filipino, be it in their everyday lives, courtship, love, patriotism, and culture. New music is the current styles and techniques incorporating various music forms such as ethnic and electronic and other forms. Composers of experimental new music in the Philippines include Jose Masada, Lucasio Casilag, Ramon Santos, Manuel Maramba, Jerry Dudup, Francisco Feliciano, Josefino, Chino, Toledo, and Jonas Baez. These composers retain the Filipino spirit by incorporating traditional music forms as well as indigenous rhythms and instruments in their compositions.